all you.
Okay, so I said this is one of our busiest classes, our most populated classes, because I said if I put the word stress and hormones in the lecture title, nobody can deny the fact that they need to be here, because if you don't have stress and you don't have hormones, then you can go right back out to your car. So I gave this lecture, I guess it's been a couple of months now, at a women's expo where I was a speaker, and I was giving the lecture, and I was like, this information is so important, we really need to like repeat it and do it to our own audience, and then film it for our online audience as well. Being in the natural health field, I feel like a lot of the things that come into our office that we help people with are often things that aren't like traditional issues. Do you know what I mean? Like by the time somebody seeks out our care and comes into our office, they've probably already been to a lot of other places. This is probably not their first stop, right? Oftentimes they've come here even sometimes as their last resort. Like they've gone everywhere else and haven't really gotten an awesome solution or the exact right answer for them, and so they're still looking. And so I feel like that's kind of the job of alternative medicine, is to kind of pick up sometimes where medicine leaves off or fill a gap or a void that's not there, because we look at the body and health and the whole body, you know, holistically in a lot different of a perspective. But I'm super passionate about teaching people that this can be your first stop. It doesn't have to be your last resort, you know. So I think over the course of 16 years of doing this, I've kind of become a lot more bold about trying to teach people that lesson. Because after 16 years of hearing people's heartache and how much time and effort and money they've spent trying to get an answer and trying to find true wellness, you know, they're dedicated. It's not like they're just slacking off and not doing anything. They're actually trying to get well. And just the heartache and misery of not coming to an answer, I was like, you know what, we got to get out there and kind of shout it from the rooftops and make this information widely known and accepted so that more people can find this sooner. And so, I don't know, how many of people have already heard my personal story of how I got in? I know you guys have been to a couple classes, how I got into alternative medicine in the first place. Maybe like read my bio or whatever. Okay, so I was one of you guys. I was a person who got bounced around in the medical field and they didn't give me really great answers. But I was really young when that happened to me. I was in high school and then I was in undergraduate studies. And so kind of, I'll tell you, make it quick so this isn't all about my story, but stress and hormones have become a passion of mine because that's ultimately what caused me to be sick. But in the traditional world, what was happening was that the only thing that was recommended for me was to get injected full of hormones where they put me through menopause. So I've been through menopause twice. And then in between those, I would have surgeries. And I was in my 20s and I was like, okay, do I just keep doing this? Like, what does my future, like, long-term look like here? Like, surely you can't just keep cutting me open and doing this every 2 years. Like, that's as long as it would help my pain condition, right? So I ended up actually having to stop my undergraduate studies. So I was in University of Rochester back at my hometown studying pre-med, and I had to stop school. Now I love school. Like anybody tells you, like, if I could get paid just for being a student, I totally would. So no offense to all of you, I still love you. But I just love studying. Like I'm a total book nerd. So to me, to be able to actually have to stop studying something that I was passionate about in an attempt to help people and be of service was a lot of heartache. You know, like that was a really tough pill to swallow. But you guys have probably all been there where, you know, your misery turns into a blessing in disguise in the future. And so that's ultimately what led me on this whole path, because as I had to learn about what philosophy kind of resonated with me and where true health and wellness comes from, you know, that led me to chiropractic college, and it led me to study nutrition, and it led me to studying kinesiology and the muscle testing, and ultimately shaped the practice that I have today, where you can read all these crazy success stories that are literally all throughout the office. I mean, there's pituitary tumors that are gone, and people healed of all sorts of crazy diseases, and people being able to get their body in balance so they no longer need medication or need less medication. You know, there's actually, in my study, in my research this year, I've been doing more research on cancer because it's such a buzzword. And also leading up to, in October, we always do a cancer awareness health fair. So I always research every year what's the newest and latest and kind of what things are available. And so I've been studying that this year. And what a buzzword buzzword came across was radical remissions. So these are people who have stage 4 cancer. So talk about the worst prognosis, right? This is like literally a death sentence in our society today. But they've had radical remissions. So that means that they have cured their bodies of stage 4 cancers where every expert told them it was completely impossible. And so it's radical, right? Like they don't even have an explanation for how in the world that somebody could reverse stage 4 cancer. So we've been studying all along the way, well, okay, how is that possible? What did they do? And I know I'm going to get off on a tangent because this is really cool, but I think it pertains to all of us today, and it'll end up kind of coming up later in our lecture about if those people can do it, then we sure as heck can implement a lot of the things that they're teaching. So there was a woman who went around and studied people in all different countries with all different types of stage 4 cancers who had these radical remissions. So they started documenting it. And what she came up with was that there were 9 common things that all of them did, right? And so, like, it came up with, first there was like over 200 different therapies and practitioners and specialists that they had seen, but she narrowed it down to 9 common things. And only 2 of the 9 were actually physical medicine, like diet, nutrition, supplementation, that kind of stuff. The other 7 were like mind, body, health type of stuff, or connecting with your spiritual self, improving your faith, declaring empowerment over your body, like taking a stance and deciding that you can heal yourself, getting rid of negative emotions, reinforcing positive emotions. So all of those other additional things are to target stress. And so we're talking about stress tonight because I don't know if you guys knew this. I knew that the number was really high, like as far as the percentage of diseases that have been associated with stress. But again, on my research over the year, I found that CDC, Mayo Clinic, Harvard Medical, Yale, they now are all documenting that 95% of diseases are caused by stress. So, okay, we know that information now. So what do we do with that? And they've known this for years. Like, this is not new research, right? So if all the major medical, I don't know what you call them, professionals, experts, have agreed that 95% of all diseases are related to stress, shouldn't we do something about stress? Like, shouldn't the majority of all of our healthcare be aimed at reversal of stress, or how to manage stress, or how to adapt to stress? So I feel like that's a big thing that alternative medicine has come in. Like, we're okay being like the gurus and the weirdos and doing alternative type things, like mind-body medicine, to handle that. So I just wanted to tell you why we do it. And then we're going to go over like some of the testing that we do here that's specifically targeted to stress, because you guys realize, like, well, I'll tell you when we get to the technology, but nobody really has a true indicator of how stressed they are. Do you kind of understand that? So when I gave this lecture at the Women's Expo, we didn't have the word stress in it at all. Like, I was actually advised not to put the word stress in my lecture title because I was speaking to women like myself. So we're like go-getters and we're type A and we get a lot of stuff done, right? And sometimes we even think like stress is our friend, or how many people have said that, like, I function better on stress, right? Yeah, totally. So there's no like gas meter on our body that tells us like, oh, you're on the red, like too much stress, stop and chill out and rest and relax and recuperate, right? So we've got some technologies that we implement here because I practiced for over 12 years, and I would just have to interview people about their stress levels, and what I found is people really underreport their stress. They have no idea where they are, probably because we're just comparing ourselves to our stressed out friend or relative or coworker, and we're like, oh, they're getting off worse off than I do. I must be doing fine, right? But the way stress works is it's like a silent little thing. It kind of builds up and builds up and builds up. And your body will compensate for high levels of stress for a really long time. But all the while it's doing that, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. So while your body is forcing you to get through the stress and allowing it to happen, eventually something's going to be that one incident, and it might not even be a major thing, like the straw that broke the camel's back kind of a deal, right? So we're going to break it down a little bit into the sciencey part. If you guys know me, I always kind of give you like the bad news first and tell you how stressed out and how deadly that is and how dangerous it is, and that you have no idea that it's even happening. But then I'm going to give you like some solutions so that you can reverse this and figure it all out. So, do I have any multitaskers in the room? Yeah, I am too. I used to think that was my gift. Now, I don't fill out resumes because I worked for myself for the last 16 years. I don't really need to put a resume out there. But if I did, I would probably tell them I was a multitasker. Like, I think that was one of my gifts. Like, I can run circles around people. I could probably do 4 times the amount of one person in one day. And I thought that was like a really good thing, right? Do you guys think it's a really good thing? Yeah, for the people that are getting stuff from me, right? So, so I'm thinking this is my skill, and then I'm also like reading stuff about mindfulness, right, and mind-body medicine, and meditation, and breathing, and they're actually telling me that multitasking is not good for me, and I'm spreading myself too thin by multitasking all the time, and I can't ever actually be present and in the moment if I'm always thinking about like all the next things that I have to do. So I'm like, But try to tell a type A person to meditate, right? Yeah, so it's us, the ones that need it the most, that won't do it because it's boring, right? Or I don't feel immediate results from it. I'm not sweating or grunting. I don't feel any physical pain, so how could it be causing me any benefit? I'm just like one of you guys. That's why I wrote this lecture. So, yes, multitaskers, I'm telling you this because you are more predisposed to have a stress syndrome, or what we call adrenal fatigue, and I'm going to define that in a minute. Okay, so we talked about our multitaskers. Type A, any type A? We rule the world, right? Yeah, we do. For a short while, until we can't. So if you won't take time out, has anybody ever had their body say, fine, like I'll put you on, put you on the bench, right? So that's what happens, and I'll explain kind of the science behind it. But I love the description of the type A person on the slides. Like, a couple are good. Like, yeah, I'm an ambitious person, I'm competitive and practical. But did you know they also call us impatient and aggressive? I was like, wait a minute, I thought I was in agreement with all of this stuff. So we can be a big pill to swallow for the people who are not a type A person, right? So type A are also predisposed or more prone to have stress syndromes or adrenal fatigue. And then how about my overthinkers? So you don't have to be type A to overthink things. Yeah. So I like this picture. I picked this because, do you see how it looks all crazy and swirly and maybe like spaghetti-like and everything? So has anybody ever heard that analogy that women's brains like spaghetti and men's brain are like waffles? You haven't? So this is so funny. So women, one thought leads to the next, like everything's all tangled and intertwined and everything. And so somebody says one thing and then we're off on a tangent over here and you make a comment and then your husband's looking at you like, how did you get from there to there? And you're like, keep up, will you? Has anybody ever had that happen? Okay, whether you're the husband or the wife, right? Yeah. So that's women's brains kind of are all intertangled and interconnected like that. The waffle brain, like, I'm not making fun of you guys because I'm partially jealous for this, and it's not all men and all women, but this is kind of a rationale. They only focus on one thing, right? So their little waffle compartment, the box, it's like a filing cabinet. So they go and they take one box out and they look in and they can work in that box. And you ask them a different question and they're like, oh, hold on a second. I'm going to put this box back and move over here. I'm going to get this box down and now I can talk to you about whatever. And you're looking at them like, hello? Can you answer me already? What is taking you so long? Like, are you in there? She's laughing. See? You guys didn't know I was a psychiatrist, did you? I'm going to fix your world. No, I'm just kidding. So we all process and think differently, but this intertangled thought pattern for the overthinkers, if you go to the next slide, it kind of looks like this intertangled, interconnected, crazy web with all these arrows and pointy stuff. So you don't have to get all caught up in the words that are on here because it's a lot of like anatomy and all, but in general, this is a chart of how your whole hormonal system is interconnected. So if anybody has anybody ever blamed their hormones on anything? Like everything, right? Like, oh, it's hormonal, or oh yeah, I'm getting my period, or I'm on my period, or my period's 2 weeks away, or it doesn't even matter. I just had my period, like somewhere along the way, like I'm somewhere near my period, right? So we blame our hormones on everything. But this is why they can make you feel so crazy, because one thing is leads to the next, to the next, to the next. So you can't affect just one area of your hormonal system without affecting the other areas. So if anybody has been to, like, if you're my patient, yes, we've talked about this. If you've been to a functional medicine doctor or integrative health, we're always talking about getting to the root of the problem, right? So you guys might all have come in here tonight. Well, we're talking about stress. So you're here for a stress lecture. I'm assuming like some y'all might need a little bit of help with stress, or maybe you just came here to get some information for somebody else that you know that's stressed out of their mind, so you can help them. That's probably what it is, right? I'm asking for a friend. I'm just here to get the notes for my friend. So even if you're just getting the notes for your friend, the root cause could be different. You know, people display stress in all different ways in their body. So for one person, stress could result in headaches. You know, for another person, stress could be more gastrointestinal type issues like food sensitivities that we see a lot of. For other people, stress could be aches and pains all over the body. You know, for other people, it could even be more serious. Like it could be an actual diagnosis like a heart attack or stroke or cancer or something major, right? So it's kind of like wherever your weakest link is, that's where the stress is ultimately going to have its worst effect in the body. So that just kind of explains how your gut and your insulin and your mood and your hormones and all your energy processes are all kind of interconnected. Okay, don't flip the page yet, cheaters. I know I did it. I'm allowed to. Okay, so if I say hormones, name some hormones. What do you think of right away? Estrogen's up. Testosterone. What else? Progesterone. Cortisol. Good. Any other ones? Insulin is one. Good. So you guys can turn the page. You guessed most of them, which is really great. But a lot of times, like when we say hormones, people just think of like male and female hormones, right? So that was the top ones. But adrenaline and cortisol are two major hormones that we're going to talk a lot about. Those are your stress hormones, and they're produced in your adrenal glands, which are little glands that like sit on your kidney and your back. So even people who have like chronic back pain that hasn't been resolved by chiropractic or massage or whatnot could actually be an unresolved adrenal issue. So I'll tell you guys that my practice in New York, the practice here very quickly mimicked the practice in New York as far as the types of cases that we needed to help people with. So literally 90% of my practice is some kind of adrenal fatigue or thyroid insufficiency. And I think that happens because it's not like adrenal fatigue or adrenal imbalance really isn't widely recognized in traditional medicine. So they don't really only talk about adrenal glands if you have like Cushing's or an actual tumor on your adrenals, right? So we're just talking about when things start to get imbalanced or start to be in dysfunction mode, how we can start to create more balance and help the body heal itself and get into balance. So we'll talk a little bit more about adrenaline. You guys know like adrenaline, an adrenaline rush, like you get excited or somebody chases you or something. I don't know. How many people have been chased lately? Hopefully nobody. Unless it was like a fun tag game or something. That's like your kids or something. Yeah. But like if you slam on the brakes and your heart starts racing, like that's protective. That's supposed to happen, and your adrenals are supposed to kick in to save your life, right? Or to get you out of immediate danger. So your heart starts pumping, your blood starts rushing to your extremities. You can people move vehicles when they have adrenaline, right? Like if somebody's dying, like you hear like old women like lifting cars off of bodies. That's adrenaline. That's how powerful adrenaline is. Now cortisol is also related to your adrenal glands, but cortisol is not so fun. Cortisol is related to insulin and blood sugar levels and your energy levels. It's also the insulin resistant weight. Like when people gain weight around their middle, it's the weight that's really hard to lose. Like women tend to complain about losing their waistlines, kind of a thing. So that's cortisol is a cortisol relation. So it's tied in with your insulin and blood sugar levels as well. Cortisol is also, if it's left in the body and it's not burnt off, it can be very damaging to your blood vessels and your cardiovascular system. So another entire lecture that we do is on heart disease and cholesterol, and how to prevent it and handle some of these things naturally. But cholesterol isn't actually the issue. The cholesterol is a Band-Aid, and it's actually the body's natural response to having damage and inflammation in the arterial wall. And a lot of that can come from these prolonged stress hormones, cortisol being in the system for prolonged amounts of time. So you got cortisol and weight and insulin and energy levels and mood and heart and blood pressure all tied into one thing. And you can kind of understand that, like when you're stressed, it's kind of hard to like rest and relax and recover. You kind of stay in this elevated, stressed out state. Pulse and blood pressure can be kind of elevated. Okay, so hormones, you can switch the page. Hormones, friends or foe. So that's what we told the women at the expo, that we were having a lecture on hormones and how to make them work for you. And so people were more interested in that than me just preaching on how stress is ruining your life, because they didn't even know they were stressed, right? Or they're in denial about their stress levels. Or it's too stressful to talk about stress. So your hormones are necessary, right? Like one time I was talking to an endocrinologist, and I was complaining about hormones and trying to make a hormone joke like we all do. And he's like, oh no, you need hormones. And I was like, okay, buddy, like, let's not be so serious. I'm a female talking to you about hormones. Like, calm down for a minute. But yeah, you do need hormones for like every system in your body. So they're like, just all they are is chemical messengers to tell your thyroid and your pituitary and your brain and different parts of your body how to function properly. So they are important. The problem becomes when they get out of balance, right? And so one overrides another. They're not coming and turning on when they're supposed to turn on, or they're staying expressed longer than they're supposed to be expressed in the body, and they can't shut off. So you guys all had a chance to do the adrenal quiz. I'm not going to out anybody. Sometimes you guys out yourself, which is super funny. So all you had to do was count up the number of yeses you had. And this quiz, it's an abbreviated quiz that comes from this book, Adrenal Fatigue in the 21st Century, the Stress Syndrome or something. The 21st Century Stress Syndrome. We have it somewhere here. It's often not here. Oh, here it is. Because it's one of the most checked out books. So just so you know, this is a lending library. So you can check books out and borrow them from us and take them for a week or two. But this is also on Amazon. I call this the Bible of adrenal fatigue. It really does a great job of explaining what it is and where it comes from and what are some of the triggers that cause it, and also things that you can do to help your body, diet, nutrition. It does talk about supplements. My disclaimer on that is going to be, you can't read a book and have them tell you what everybody needs. Do you know what I mean? Like, so somebody will write a book, and then 10 people will read the book, and 2 people will follow it and say they had a miraculous, improvement. It was the exact right thing. And then the other 8 people are like, well, I read that same book, and like, I didn't get any, it didn't work for me, right? So the problem with people who write books, it's not a problem. They're awesome, amazing people, but they can't individualize their approach to each person. So my only disclaimer, when anytime you read great information, is if there have protocols in there, we just say don't follow them. Like, bring that information if there's anything that you're curious about, like, oh, what about B vitamins? Like, and we'll test you on B vitamins, for example, and get you on the exact right ones, or even determine if you need B vitamins. Do you know what I mean? So it's really hard to just read a book and figure out exactly what your situation is because of that crazy chart that I showed you in here. But other than that, I think the book is amazing. The quiz that you guys did is just a shortened version of the quiz that's in here. But he goes over stress, like past, present, future stress, and then there's like this little calculation that you get to really kind of tell you what level of adrenal fatigue you're in. And so we're going to talk about the different levels. And then if you want more information, Dr. Wilson is the author of this. He has a whole website with a lot of information, and so you could also take the quiz online, I believe. Okay, so let's get a little sciencey. So phase 1, well, first let's go over normal so you guys kind of see it. So on your graph here, what this is showing is a 24-hour cortisol cycle. So remember I told you cortisol is one of your stress hormones. But it's also, when it's in balance, it's a good thing. It's responsible for your sleep-wake cycle. So cortisol should be highest in the morning, so you wake up and you feel refreshed and you're energized and you can get on and start your day, right? Then, over the the course of the day, it should slowly start to decline, so that by the time, and if you look at it, it's around 3 o'clock. So does anybody, don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, does anybody have like a mid-afternoon slump, like after lunch your energy like crashes? Yeah. So that's because it's not just tapering down, it's like crashing out. Uh-huh.
I was just going to ask, mine was opposite.
Yeah, you're going to see that next.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, you're smart. So this is normal. High in the morning, slowly tapering out through the day, and then lowest in the evening. So when it's time to start to rest and fall asleep, not only can you fall asleep without an issue, but stay asleep uninterrupted throughout the entire night. Is anybody perfect sleeper here? You have one perfect sleeper. Online audience, tag Nikki and tell her if you're a perfect sleeper. And then everybody's going to want to know what your secret to success is. Okay, so this is phase 1 of adrenal fatigue. So phase 1 is reversed. So anybody in here like have a hard time waking up in the morning, like slow starter kind of a deal? Okay, so that's because your cortisol isn't waking you up. Yeah. Anybody have a hard time falling asleep, like you hit your second wing kind of a deal in the evening, and then your mind's like going, and all of a sudden you're like doing laundry and planning your kids' future and everything else at like 1 o'clock in the morning? Okay, that's because your cortisol is high at night. It's opposite. It's flip-flop. Okay? So that's usually phase 1. Those are usually some of the first symptoms where I'm identifying, okay, we probably need to get in there and do some kind of adrenal support. And then if it goes unaddressed, it can go into phase 2. So phase 2 is the roller coaster phase. See all those wiggly lines in there? So that means you're up and down and you're up and down. So typical symptoms in this is like you feel good, and then you have emotional or energy lows. Usually at this point you start trying to self-medicate, relying on caffeine and energy drinks and all those kind of things. You might also be craving sweets because when your energy drops, she's laughing. Did I just diagnose you? We have a revelation! Woo! We have to have at least one healing when we have these lectures. We're going like evangelical on all of the stuff. But as your blood sugar and your stress hormones start to go up and down, when they nosedive, you're like, oh gosh, I can't do this. And so you're trying to self-medicate with food or drinks or caffeine or something, B vitamins, whatever it might be. So that's the explanation for that up and down kind of a deal. And then ultimately, if it's not addressed, the last phase of adrenal fatigue is just like burnout, right? So you're tired all the time. Your motivation is in the toilet, even though you might know that you want to do the right things and exercise and change your diet. You're so tired that even the idea of trying to implement those things is like exhausting. And you probably also are at that point where you're really like self-punishing at this point because you know what you need to do, but you just can't bring yourself about to do it. Okay? And this is not where I want to see you guys. So we have people that come in at this phase, and we've had people that literally have had to quit their jobs. They're on disability, like they're poor, they feel guilty because they're not there for their families. They can't be present. This is really disruptive. I have one lady who came in this phase, and she couldn't even drive her car, because she didn't know when she was gonna black out and have to pull her car off the road. She got caught in grocery stores and stuff where she was like, I shouldn't even be out in public, and phone a friend to come and get her kind of a thing. Okay, so you know me in chiropractic, we have a very preventative mindset. So anytime you have anything going on and your body starts to talk to you and give you those little signs and symptoms that something's just starting to not be right, it's always a lot more likely that something natural like diet and nutrition is going to work for you than if you get to a point like this, or a point where you actually have a medical emergency or an actual diagnosis. Now, it's not that those people can't be helped. We can help even a stage 3 adrenal fatigue person, but it's going to be a lot longer road to recovery. So when somebody comes in like this, what I'm telling them standardly is it's going to be a minimum of 1 to 2 years to fully recuperate their adrenals and get their whole endocrine and hormonal system back in balance. And that's just because adrenals are they're finicky, right? So you've got to go back through the roller coaster phase, and you're like, oh, I feel good. Oh, yeah, I can do more, and I got to make up for lost time, right? This is like the psychology of an adrenal fatigue person. And then the body's like, no, that's too much. I'm going to crash again because you won't rest and treat me right, So it's kind of a difficult thing, but it's really like what we specialize on in here because I know how the typical adrenal case goes. And I've been an adrenal patient. I still have like times when I push my body too hard and I'll have to go back to adrenal. And then the next organ in line is once the adrenals kind of crash out and burn out, it's the thyroid that takes the brunt of it. So if you have depleted your body to the point where your cortisol can't mount a stress response anymore, now the thyroid is going to try to produce hormones because your thyroid is like your metabolism and energy levels. So then if that gland goes into overdrive without getting any kind of remedy or kind of support, now you've got a double whammy. And a lot of times we see both thyroid and adrenal coming up. So there's always kind of been this dichotomy in the natural health world where half of the nutritional world says you have to get the adrenals balanced before you can get the thyroid balanced. And then the other half of the world's like, nope, you've got to go after the thyroid first and then go after the adrenals. Well, they're actually both right. And this comes back to what I told you, like my disclaimer regarding following a standard protocol or just, standard advice that's given to everybody. They're both right. It just depends on the individual. So sometimes we have patients who are a thyroid priority and we handle that first and then things kind of shake out and get in alignment. And other times we do adrenals first. And it's probably 50-50, really. So does that kind of make a little bit of sense? Is everybody kind of identifying with one of the phases? I mean, you might not, but even if you've been there temporarily, it doesn't mean that you stay there. Because if you listen to the body and do the right things and rest and recover, they can be reversed. Okay, so a little bit of things that affect the adrenals and the hormone system. Obviously diet. So we can probably talk about this forever and ever and ever. But what to eat, these are nutrients that are very supportive to the endocrine system or to the adrenal glands. So B vitamins, everybody knows B vitamins give them energy. The 5-hour energy shots and all those other companies know that too. So anytime you have an energy drink, you can just turn the can over and see B12 and it'll literally say like 50,000% of the recommended daily allowance. So that's why you're hooked on it, because if you take 50,000% of the amount you're supposed to take of any nutrient, it's going to give you an artificial temporary boost, right? But you don't want to do that for too long, because when you megadose on one nutrient, it will cause you to be deficient in other nutrients. So has anybody ever heard my Hummer analogy to nutrition getting into the cell? Okay, so on your cells, all the cells have little receptor sites. So the analogy for that is like parking spots, okay? So there's little parking spots, and that's how nutrition and micronutrients and electrolytes and enzymes and stuff get into the cell to feed and nourish the cell. So that would be like if we megadosed on, we were talking about B vitamins, for example. That would be like when you guys all showed up for my lecture that there were 10 Hummers all parked in the spots outside, and you couldn't get your smaller vehicles to get in. You're like, I can't go to this lecture. All these stupid Hummers are taking up all the spot. I'm sorry if you have a Hummer. I love them. They're great. Just not on the cell. So that's what happens. If you megadose on one vitamin, the other vitamins can't get in, and now eventually you cause other nutritional deficiencies. Okay? Vitamin C. So a lot of people don't know that the adrenals actually use the majority of your vitamin C. What do you guys think vitamin C is usually for? Yeah, your immune system. So if you think about it, when you get stressed and you get worn out, what's the first thing that happens? You get sick. You catch every little cold and bug that, your coworker or your kid or your relative comes in with. Well, that's because your immune system's been weakened because your poor, depleted, tired adrenal glands used up all your vitamin C, okay? And then your immune system, there's nothing left over for the immune system, and then that poops out on you. So that's kind of the stress and immune system relationship. Minerals are very good. So there's two parts of your nervous system. There's your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. Has anybody heard those words before? Mm-hmm. Did you hear it from me? Good. So your sympathetic is your wakeful part of your nervous system, and sometimes we call it like your fight or flight. So that's that adrenaline rush, the slam your foot on the brake pedal, run away from danger kind of an effect. Okay? So when it's in balance, it's a good thing because we need to be awake and alert at appropriate times of the day. The opposite of fight or flight, your parasympathetic, is rest, digest, and repair. So if you're in fight or flight, your body is not resting and recovering. So even if you are sleeping through the night, it's not good quality sleep. Even if you are taking time out, your body doesn't have what it needs to fully equip itself and do the repair job. Digestion goes sluggish, so people might not be absorbing nutrition. They also might have like constipation or bowel type issues. And then repair, so it just takes a long time for people to actually recover. So a lot of times I think that is a little subtle sign, like if you notice, like even after exercise, like there's good stress too, you guys. So after exercise, if you notice that you don't really recover the way you used to, or you can't do as much, or you're achy, you hurt longer than you used to, or if you have one night out and you stay out later than you used to, and it takes you 2 days to recover, where you're like, gosh. But you kind of get these little signs and symptoms, like the body can't really handle what it used to, or you get stressed out. Somebody cusses you out on the highway and then it ruins the whole rest of your day, like it just hangs with you can't shake it off kind of a thing, so those are signs that the body can't recover the way it used to recover, so that can be detrimental long term. So the minerals really get your body out of that fight or flight response and help it get into the parasympathetics, where the body actually can receive healing, right? So if you're constantly in fight or flight and that's not ever addressed, you can be on the exact right diet, supplements, healthcare protocol, and it's not going to work for you as well as if we could turn that mechanism down. So you have to get your parasympathetics in a state where the body can actually receive healing and know what to do with it. Protein is important to balance out blood sugar levels, doing a low carb type of a diet. So people that are on this adrenal fatigue, remember I said they especially the roller coaster phase, start to self-medicate. You're looking for a constant stimulant kind of a thing. Well, that's the exact wrong thing to do. So things that are stimulating, like mega B vitamins or synthetic B vitamins, caffeine, high carb, like processed sugar, things that you burn quickly, like people love it because immediately you feel a little bit better, but then you crash out, and then you continually need more of it to create the same effect, right? So that's that whole, that's how sugar addicts, how it all starts. I didn't ask anybody to raise their hand about being a sugar addict, so don't worry. But in our world too, there's things called adaptogenic herbs. So there's a whole category of herbs that will help the body adapt. So that's what we talk with patients about all the time. Like, life inevitably is going to throw you curveballs, right? The next stressor is already waiting for you, and you don't even know where it's going to come from. So we can't stop life. We can't prevent things. We can't always foresee it. It's like that insurance commercial, right? Like, you never plan for accidents. You never plan for stress. You never plan for setbacks. So what we can do is build up your system and your body's ability to handle stress more effectively, so that every little incident of unexpected stress isn't a massive setback to your overall health and well-being. Okay, and sometimes we do that with supplementation, along with dietary changes, getting you on the exact right diet with some of these high-powered nutrient foods, and getting you off of the artificial stimulant type stuff. Okay, so let's talk about what not to eat. Well, we kind of already did. This isn't where I make any friends. I tried to charm you with my cute smile and my, no, she's like, no, it didn't work. I didn't do it? Shoot, I'll work harder next time. So yeah, all the stuff that tastes good and we love, the coffee and the tea and the chocolate and the energy drinks. I think chocolate's on there twice.
It is.
I think I was eating chocolate when I wrote this, no? But it's the simple carbs. And sometimes what I find is when people start to decrease their processed carb intake, they start to replace that often with too much fruit consumption. So obviously, fruit is a lot healthier option than a Hershey's bar kind of a thing. There's some nutritional value in there, of course, and there's phytonutrients and antioxidants. But it just depends on your body composition. Like, some people really can't even tolerate the fructose that's in fruit sugar, and sometimes excessive use of that can cause that cortisol, belly bump too. I don't know why I always draw people's attention to my belly. Just a second. Okay, so how to eat. I don't know, you guys have no sympathy. I would say that, skinny chicks get no sympathy. I'm going to start a support group. I am. Okay, so how you eat is you could be in it. She's in the front row laughing at me. We gotta unite. Okay, skinny people have problems too, don't get me wrong. how to eat, chewing your food, stopping, taking time, right? Not standing at your desk. I just did this. I just shoved a bunch of food in my face so I could come in here and talk. But I did sit down. I was kind of on my phone, and I also had a pile of things I was looking at on the left side of me. But, I mean, I did stop and eat. I chewed it. I didn't chew very good either, I'll tell you that. Like, I swallowed a lot of it without chewing. So I failed on this mission. Breakfast. Now, there's a lot of things about intermittent fasting, and there is a lot of, and I am a fan of intermittent fasting for the right person. The person that's the stage 3 adrenal fatigue, that's not the right first step for those people. They're very depleted already, so we can't take nutrition away. We can't expect that their body's going to know what to do without regular intervals of nutrition and support, because we eat to feed our body. I mean, we eat for a lot of reasons, but that's supposed to be the reason we eat. How we eat. So the old adrenal fatigue method is kind of like grazing throughout the day, making sure that you're getting quality fats and proteins throughout the day to keep your blood sugar even, right? So once somebody is able, like this is not a keto diet, right? This is not somebody's body is not healthy enough yet or stable enough yet to do intermittent fasting or take long intervals before food or expect the body to transition very well between burning glucose or sugar to burning ketones for fat, okay? So this is old information for the majority of people, but this is very good current information for adrenal fatigue people. So 5 meals a day, grazing throughout the day, having regular intervals of snacks. Not forever, but until we can get them out of that slump and then teach the body how to use the right resources and get them fueled and eating properly. But it's really about keeping the blood sugar levels balanced so that you're not having those roller coaster moments in the afternoon slump and then trying to self-medicate with artificial stimulant kind of stuff. We said sitting down while you eat. Creating a peaceful environment to eat in, so not bringing work to the dinner table. There's a lot of, research about not, putting your cell phones aside and actually stop and talk to each other, enjoy meals with your family, get them all around and make it a center for family conversation, in eating in good company. These aren't just general recommendations that, like, we need it. Like, I always laugh sometimes about what somebody's done a research study on. Like, there's people out there that believe if it's not in a research study, it doesn't exist. But there is actually research for all of the things that are on this paper showing people that that's how people do better, how they eat, how they absorb nutrition better. People in other countries who do these things don't have the obesity and weight gain issues that we have in this country. So isn't there a book about, like, why French women don't get fat or something like that? And you think about French cuisine and it's, like, very rich, butter-rich foods and stuff, and why they're thin as a culture in general. And it's because they actually stop and eat and make it a social thing and a family connection type of a time. So that's a lot of problems about the eating, is like it's a subconscious thing. If you don't stop and create a peaceful environment and breathe and chew your food and all, you don't even know what you're eating. You're just eating without really, you're kind of completely bypassing the body's chemistry and hormone. And your hormones will tell you when you're full and you're satisfied and it's time to stop eating. But you're like doing it on the fly and go. Like, you might way supersede the amount of intake that you need, that if you stopped 5 minutes ago, you would have been good. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, so other things that you can do. Getting adjusted. So I am a chiropractor. We're not a big pain clinic. I don't know if you've noticed that about me. We don't do a lot of work. We don't do any work comp or no fault or injury type cases. We'll take care of our patients if they get in injuries, of course, but we're not out there marketing for, those type of cases. And that's really because my philosophy in chiropractic taught me how chiropractic was originally intended, and that it is a healthcare system in and of itself. And that's because when we adjust the spine, it actually, the intention is to influence your nervous system. So chiropractic adjustments will actually turn that fight or flight response off and enable the parasympathetics to allow the body to receive healing. So a lot of times in our nutrition programs, we will recommend that somebody start doing some chiropractic to get them past a little bit of a hump and get the body in a state where even the nutrition will help you more effectively. Learning to say no. I put that in for me. So, those bracelets, does anybody have a bracelet with, like, your word of the year on it or something? Like a little affirmational thing that you look at? I don't know, are those still popular? I think
They
they're
are.
really good. Yeah, they are? Okay, good. They should be. We should sell them. So one year I was like, you know what my word of the year is going to be? I'm like, it's going to be no. And people were looking at me like, wow, that's really motivating and encouraging. That's your word? And I'm like, and it is, because I have to learn how to say no, right? A lot of us are servants. We're pleasers. We like to be there and help other people. Like, we have all the right intentions. But you really do have to create healthy boundaries, because when you are a higher tone person and you are a type A and you're a get it done kind of a thing, people feed off of that, you know? And they're not doing it on purposely, but like other people can be like energy vampires and really like deplete you. And there they are, like, oh, you always say yes, here, you take this. And you're like, ah. So it really feels good actually to start saying no and only saying yes to the things that are important to you, that would make a difference. What else? Planning downtime. This is something some people are really great at. Like, by the time they get done with their vacation, they've already got the next one booked and have something on the calendar to look forward to. Sometimes that's enough. People ask me all the time, like, I had a conversation with somebody who's probably like my twin yesterday, and she's like, well, what do I need to meditate? Should I do yoga? Like, what is it? And I'm like, it's not that easy. Like, everybody has what their thing is. You kind of just have to try different things and figure out what it is for you. So for me, it's not meditation, because I'm an active person. So yoga's better for me because I'm actually moving, like I'm doing something. I can get from the beginning of a routine and follow steps and end the routine and know I can check it off my list, right? If I was just laying there, like staring into space, like it's not for me, but I think that there's amazing evidence that it is great for people, you know, or just breathing. It could be doing a daily devotion and practicing positive affirmations and actually listening to your own self-talk. Sometimes we don't realize how many times a day we'll say something negative to ourselves or about something, or that releases your power. You know what I mean? Like, your body hears that. Words have energy. Like we know in Proverbs, like your words have energy, and it's so true. And you have to start tuning into the words that you speak over yourself and what you declare over yourself every single day. So when I told you about the radical remission people, and remember I said only 2 things were physical medicine, so every single one of them had to learn positive self-talk. Like, some of those people even were so bold as to say that their negative thinking and words is what caused their cancer. Crazy, right?
It's true.
So it's powerful. The spoken word is super powerful. There's life or death in the tongue. We know that. And so I think that's another thing, in addition to this concept of stress, that people just gloss over. Like, yeah, stress, it sucks, it kills, but okay, move on, right? Like, we sweep it under the rug, like it's out of my control kind of a thing. So this stuff takes practice, you know? If you're somebody like me that's type A and say yes kind of a person, I love what I do. Did you guys know that? Did you have any idea? I do. I really love it. Like, I live and breathe it. It's my lifestyle. It's not just a career for me. So it's very hard to, like, there's no boundary, right? When I walk out that door and go home, I'm putting a podcast on, I'm listening to cardiologists. I mean, like, I go home and talk to my husband about my day, and one conversation with the spaghetti brain kicks in and leads to, like, a patient case, and, like, he's like, can you ever stop? I'm like, what? You know, so having those healthy boundaries is important. And just even realizing, like, have a little bit of self-awareness, like, it would be helpful for me to do some kind of self-care when I get home, or rest, or pause, or relax. Sometimes just physical exercise. It doesn't even have to be like something that's, you know, slow and boring. Like, breathe. It's like telling people to do rotator. Has anybody ever had a rotator cuff injury? So to try to get somebody to do, like, rehab their, like, rotator cuff with, like, 1 pound weights and, like, take a half hour, like, they won't do it because they're not sweating and grunting. You know, it's, like, boring. So these things, you have to find what your thing is. It might just be going out in nature and taking a walk, and don't bring your phone, and don't put your, what are those things they're called, your earphones in. They used to be called earphones simply, but now they're fancier, which actually are stressful because they're electromagnetic radiation, so sorry for that. Yeah, nothing's good for you, right? Some people, it's gardening. It could be reading a book that's fiction, not, like, for me, I have to actually read fiction, because everything that I love to read is study materials, and then that gets my brain, but we gotta have a class on this, and I'm gonna put some notes, and we're gonna put this up on our blog, and right? So you have to be purposeful about things that help you turn the brain off. practice gratitude. Gratitude journaling is an easy one. Just, at the end of the day, jot down 5 things that you're grateful for. You've got to be able to find something. If you don't, you're probably Grinch, and that we don't have a lecture for that. No, there aren't any supplements for that. No, I'm just making sure you're still listening, that's all. They're still listening in the back, so that's good. Oh, this is so good. Being realistic with your to-do list. Do I have any list makers? Anybody have more than one list? How many lists do you have? Do I have one list? I'm going to be honest here. One list, who has one list, who has 2, 3, who has 4, 5. Yeah, I got a list for all of you guys. So when you get your list, and I want it done by Friday, and I will check up on you. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, lists. So my list. It's kind of satisfying, right? Because it's like you can cross it off and it's done and whatever. Like sometimes I do stuff that's not on my list. I'm like confessing a lot to you guys, but I just want you to know you're not crazy. I am. Sometimes I do stuff that wasn't ever on my list, but I write it down so I could cross it off. Does anybody do that? Yes. Good! Not alone. This is actually my therapy session. You just didn't know you were coming to mine. You're healing me now. Good. Yeah, so what I learned how to do, I can't remember the different categories, but I don't know if I wrote it on here. Yes. Okay, so you could break it up into different categories. Like one method is to just pick 5 things that you could realistically do today. So I have an office to-do list. I can tell you how many to-do lists I have. I have a lot of lists if you think about it. But break it down simple. I have an office to-do list and a home to-do list. So if those 2 lists are staring at me all day, it's very easy to feel defeated or overwhelmed or I don't know where to start kind of a thing. So then I have a today to-do list. So I close the page, turn the page, and just put today's date. And pick the critical things that have to be done. Obviously, those things with deadlines or have dates on them, or somebody's waiting for you to be able to pick up the ball and run with it, kind of thing. That has to go on the today list. And then also, realistically, what else can you get done in that day? And try to just only look at that list. But if you do something on the other list, cross it off because it feels good. But another way to do it, I thought was good is, there's kind of 4 categories. We all can agree about things that you shouldn't do, right? Things that are illegal, for example, the obvious. But there are also things that maybe you shouldn't do, constantly pick up after your kids because you're enabling them, and that's going to be a constant stressor when they could very well clean up after themselves. So maybe there's things that you do. That's just one example that maybe you shouldn't do, right? Then there's the desirable things to do, right? So it's wouldn't it be nice if I could clean my house top to bottom and meal prep and create, a list for the rest of the week. But maybe I can't get all that done. Okay, it'd be cool if I did. It's desirable. Desirable also could be okay, so tonight we're having this event. It could have been desirable if the chairs were aligned different and if the room was bigger and, we had a different border up here and, I don't know, maybe we could have snacks and refreshments. It's not critical. You're all still here and you're gaining something out of it. So you kind of have to release some of those desirable things, couldn't get to it. Oh well, you're still here. Hopefully you leave with some kind of information that changes your life. Or your friend's life that you came to the lecture. Right? Then there's the mandatory things. So we talked about mandatory deadlines, pay your bills on time, return phone calls, emails that have some kind of critical something. Patients are coming and I gotta look at somebody's blood labs before they get here kind of a thing, but something else that's on my desk and they're not coming for a week can go to the bottom of the pile kind of a thing. And then there's the trivial things that really don't make a difference. They matter to us, but they don't really matter to anybody else, right? So maybe one of my eyebrows is higher than the other because I penciled them in 2 seconds and I think it looks terrible. But nobody notices because I never stop moving them anyway. So you can't tell. So those silly little things that we nitpick over ourselves all the time, but nobody else even knows whether it went right or wrong, or if my toenail paint is chipping under my shoes or whatever, right? Only I know that stuff. It's not though. What else? Oh, and so we're talking about hormones. This is a hot topic. In our office, the way to handle there is hormone replacement therapy, and many of our patients are on it or have considered it or in the midst of, kind of meeting with doctors about it. So it would be ideal world, this would be the sequence of events. Change your diet, do some kind of whole food supplementation to get the body naturally getting in balance. Next thing would be herbs. There's herbs that we were talking about, the adaptogenic herbs. So herbs are always more powerful than like whole food supplementation. So the whole food supplements, for example, standard process that we use, they're like the building blocks. They're going to go in there and help the body like repair, right? They're the builders. Sometimes herbs can go in there and act more medicinally. Herbs always have a stronger impact as far as like changing your physiology and getting things to shift. Now it's still going to create balance. It's not like actually taking a hormone. When you take a hormone, it does the job for your body. Do you know that? Okay, so whether it's thyroid hormone or it's, other hormone replacement therapy, it will literally do the job that the body is no longer doing. So when you take, let's say, thyroid hormone, for example, your blood labs will look better, right? Like your thyroid hormone will come up because you're literally supplementing thyroid hormone. But it isn't actually repairing your thyroid gland, and it's not teaching the thyroid how to be stronger and how to work on its own. So when you do that long term, it actually creates a lazy thyroid, right? So the thyroid's like, cool, there's enough hormone here. I don't really need to do anything. And so it actually can lose function. And that's why when people take hormones, they often need increasingly higher and higher amounts of the same hormone, and this is the same for drugs, to create the same desired effect. So some of our patients are on both, which is great, because then we can kind of keep things more stable and encourage the body to be as functional as it can and use less of those types of substances. So I just kind of wanted to tell you that, like when people say they're thinking about bioidenticals, I'm like, well, what do you think about maybe, trying to get your body, see how balanced the body can do on its own with some of these natural non-invasive therapies first, and then that could be like the last resort kind of a thing. So there's reasons why people have to do it, like they might not have the anatomy there that's actually like producing any hormone, and that's a different case. But I will tell you, I feel like it's being recommended at an increasingly high, frequency. And it doesn't always have to be like the first thing to jump to. Okay, so this Nerve Express, remember I told you we actually have technology in the office to measure how well your body's handling stress? I know you guys, if you're my patient, I know you've had this done. This is one of those things when they come in, we hook them up to this machine because it tells me how well the body's handling stress, and it always also shows how chronic the stress has been there. And so it ages people. So like when people have a dot in the middle of the graph, that's the healthy stress response of a healthy 50-year-old. And most of the time, people are actually down here closer to this red corner by the time they seek care, right? So by the time things have declined to the point where they have symptoms, that's because they're way over here. So they're running on adrenaline, they're depleting their body's natural reserves, things are starting to get out of balance, and they're starting to feel like crap. Like there's at least enough evidence there for them to do something about it. Whether they land on the exact right thing first or they stumble on it later, they're starting to look for answers at that point. So most people when they come in are at least 20 to 40 years older, their stress age, than their chronological age. More or more? Older. Yeah, so that goes back to that research. The reason we do this is because 95% of all diseases are related to stress. So if you don't have a measurement tool to measure your stress, you really don't know how close you are to danger. And so that red corner is the danger corner. So by the time stress has kind of raveled, or rolled downhill to the point where it's accumulated and they're here, this is probably somebody who's not an awesome candidate for something natural. This is probably somebody who's already having some kind of a crisis or has a diagnosis or, maybe has been recommended some kind of prescription or invasive procedure, right? Now, it doesn't, not to say that that person can't also receive care and learn about their body and start to recuperate their health and take empowerment over it, but it's a lot harder when you're here compared to when you're over here somewhere, okay? Now, there is a really cool app. Me and my husband have been trying it out because heart rate variability is across different professions is the gold standard for measuring the effects of stress on the body. It's called Welltory, so it's Welltory, and it's actually an app on your phone so you can take your heart rate variability and measure your stress in different circumstances. So like you do it in the mornings and kind of get a baseline and kind of see how depleted and how it tells you how productive you are. It tells you your stress levels. You report like your mood and if you feel better emotionally or physically. You have a question?
Yeah, just what is it again?
Welltory. So WELLTORY. There are other ones, but that's one that somebody had recommended, and I went in and started playing around with it. I thought it was pretty simple to use. You just hold your finger over the camera, and it like reads your heart rate and pulse and takes a picture of like your blood vessels and stuff while you sit there. It's pretty cool. And then you can tag it, like you can label it like, okay, this was just me first thing in the morning. This is me after I took my supplements. This was after a workout. We took it while we were in church, My husband did one. Oh, he's a bugger. I hope if you're watching, I'm reporting you. He took one while he was on the phone with me. Then I got home and he's like, I don't know if I should show you this, but this is the one I took when we were talking. I'm like, oh, that's great. Well, I'm never calling you again. So those actually, what I really liked about those was that you get constant feedback. So you can start to see like what activities deplete you. Do you know what I mean? And also what types of measures do you have to take to recuperate? And so over time you'll learn to listen to the subtle signs and symptoms that your body's telling you before it's, accumulating. And so I think they have like really good research where they said like after 21 days of using the app, whether or not you take the recommendations that they make or not, most people still will learn how to handle stress a lot more effectively just by the nature of getting the feedback and learning their body rhythms and responses. So I guess also Apple phone, there's like a heart health app on it.
Yep, we have it.
But you have to use a device with it, right? Like I know the Apple one syncs with different, like your Fitbits and all that kind of
No, you
stuff.
just touch, I can tell you my heart rate right now.
But you have an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So the phones, there is an app on there. I don't know how it works just with the phone. Like I think you have to have a device. I'm not really sure. But there's all sorts of them out there. So just different tips and tricks that you can play with if you're a techie. So that's the end of the actual stress lecture. What I always do at the end of the events, for anybody that's new, I'll do a little muscle testing demonstration so you can understand how it works. Sometimes it's even cool for the current people that have been under care to revisit it, because you come in and you're like, okay, I still don't know like how this like pushing on the arm business works. I just trust her and I'm getting results, and the weird factor is okay with me. Like, hopefully we're somewhat normal people doing weird things and we get results, and so our motto here is weird work. So we do embrace the weirdness. We fully embrace it. I say, God put me on this planet to be the big old weirdo and to be comfortable with it. What are you gonna say?
The weirdness was on Grey's Anatomy.
I know. Did anybody see that? I haven't even seen it. It's on my recorder box. So I've gotten so many calls. Like even my dad was like, "Did you know that they do muscle testing for like emotional type of stuff?" And I'm like, "Well, yes, I did." So people are like, "Was that real?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's a real technique that they did." But I gotta go see it. So, but yeah, I know. Isn't that cool? For the people that want to get a screening tonight, if you haven't ever been muscle tested, you have the opportunity to do that. And what I'll be able to do is kind of screen your thyroid, screen your adrenals, and just see if there's any kind of weakness there. And then what we'll do is see if there is, in fact, any kind of nutrition that would correct it. And so you can kind of see a little bit about the individualized approach that we take, so that you're going to get a feel for why we're like, don't just follow somebody's written protocol. It could be a completely different set of recommendations. So if you aren't a current patient and you want to do the muscle testing, in the back of your yellow folders, one of the last sheets there should be they're not in the folder?
No.
Okay, I have them here, never mind. A workshop screening form, so we'll just pass them around both sides of the room. If you'll just pass them back. Do you want to do a muscle test? You're all familiar with it. Here are a patient. Just pass those back. Take one. Just take one if you want to do the screening and haven't been muscle tested, and we'll take you back one by one and do the screening. But I'm going to explain it to you how it works like as a group, so we don't have to say it a gazillion times when we get back there. I'm going to go run, while you're starting to do that, I'm going to go grab a little tester bottle of the Whole Food Nutrition to do the demo. It'll be right. Wants to go, you don't have to stick around for the muscle testing. Okay. Is everybody who wants to stay staying? Okay. So, do you want to be my demo person? You just have to act. Like, if I say strong muscles, go lock. If I say unlock, unlock.
Okay.
Do you mind?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So while she's standing here, what we do is we use a muscle test. And the muscle test is just a way on the surface of the body to determine if there's any kind of weaknesses inside without doing any kind of blood work or invasive procedure. So while she's standing here, she holds her arm out in front of her. If I was to push on her arm, she can match my pressure very easily, and her arm will stay, we call locked. Okay, so when I push, her arm stays solid like that. So you can rest your arm for a second. What we do in the testing is all I'm going to be doing is putting light pressure over the surface of the body. And those are areas, have you guys heard of like acupuncture meridians and those kind of things? So there's areas on the surface of the body that map out to your heart, your lungs, all your internal organs, okay? So if I press on an area that already has a weakness, her arm would go unlock. So I'm going to do the lock first. So if I touch her lung, should that cause her lung any stress? Not really, right? So if there's no problem there, I should get a locked muscle. Now if there already was stress in her lung, when I press that, we would get an unlocked muscle. So you're good actor. Good job. She's done this before. So the unlock, the way that happens is kind of like hypothermia. Have you guys, I'm from the north, but you still know what that is. Like you watch enough television, right? Okay. So in hypothermia, what happens is when your body gets cold, the body takes all the circulation from your extremities, like your hands and feet and legs, and preserves it to your core, to your visceral organs. Because your body's innate intelligent design knows that it's more important for your heart and lungs and your stomach to get blood supply for your survival than it is for your arm. So if her lung was already under stress and I pressed here, we would get the unlock. So that's because when you just put light pressure, it just slightly compromises the blood flow to that lung in this case. And so the body's saying this arm is not as important as the lung, and it unlocks. Okay? So that kind of make a little bit more sense even for the people who have been muscle tested before? Yes. Okay. Yes, even you. Give it our time. So come back here for one more second. You can't get off the hook that easy. So then the next part of muscle testing, when you guys come back into the treatment rooms, you're going to see all these little sample bottles of nutrition on the walls back there. So these are actual samples of the nutrients that we would use to create individualized programs for our patients. So they have little samples of the supplements, and so it's in a glass bottle. So if this was the right nutrition for her lung, if I have her hold that, this time we would get a locked muscle over her lung. Okay? Now you can sit down, and I'll explain how that works. Thank you so much. So the reason how that works is that energy can go through the glass of the bottle, right? So that's the same as like the sun coming through the window. So some of you have heard me say this, but I think it's the best example. Like the sun, we can feel the warmth of it on our skin. You know, you can even visualize like the rays sometimes if they come right through at an angle. So it's more obvious to our senses, like the energy of the sun coming through the glass of the window, but our senses can't perceive the energy of this, but it is whole food nutrition. So that's different than like a synthetic vitamin or something over the counter that's just made with like chemical type of ingredients. It's living nutrition, so it has energy. So when I had her hold it, she's putting this in her energy field, and the muscle test can tell us whether that's something that strengthens her or doesn't have an effect on her. Okay? So your body's always sensing energy. You guys kind of know that. You're in a healthy body, your energy actually extends 2 feet off of your body. So people that are like the adrenal fatigue, they might not have as big of an energy circle as some people. It might be a little less. But you guys kind of already know that as far as energy being exchanged. You're exchanging energy with each other all the time. So you guys, have anybody ever been around somebody who just sucks the living life out of you? You don't have to name names because they might be in this room. Or they're watching on Facebook. Yeah, so that's when you have higher energy. I know, we're alive! No names. We should just say, I count of 3, shout out somebody's name. It just be like this big old sound mess. They'll be like, wait, did you say Dr. Kristy? Yeah, so when that person sucks the life out of you, it's literally like you're giving them energy because you're the higher energy source and it flows out to something like weaker. And then you also know on the reverse side of that, somebody who, like your best friend or your favorite relative or somebody who, like, you love being in their presence because no matter what goes wrong, like, they're the person that encourages you and lifts you up and it just feels good to be around them. Or they would walk in the room right now and we all were just like, hey, like, good to see you, you know. And even if you didn't know that person, like, you find yourself smiling because you sense that they're right, okay? So you're always exchanging energy all day. So if you have that person that's sucking the living life out of you, just move 2 feet away. For real. It'll help you. And also, you do that. Have you ever, like, been in a conversation with somebody and find yourself kind of, like, leaning away? You don't even really know you're doing it, but your intelligent design is preserving you and preserving your energy by, like, getting out of their energy field. So that's how the muscle testing works. Energy, I think that you guys all understand it by the head nods and everything like that. I think when people say energy medicine, they don't really understand it. But that's as simple as it is. Your body's exchanging energy all day. And nutrition gives you energy. And somebody far smarter than me created this muscle test as an indicating mechanism for us to get you on the right programs. So I think that the best way to understand this is to experience it in your own body. I think even practitioners have a hard time explaining it to other people. So that's why we would encourage you, if you want, we'll take your sheets one at a time. I'll just take you in the back and do like a 5-second screening just to show you how it all works. And also to kind of screen some of the areas that we talked about tonight and see if it's worth, setting you up for some kind of longer term evaluation. That's the last page on your slideshow. There's always an offer for our people who come in live. So we love our Facebook audience, but there's always some perks to just being here and interacting with the community that we've built. And also getting new people to the practice. It's a good introduction for people to understand what we do and who we are. But we are offering a 25% off. So if you end up wanting to follow up as a new patient after your screening or just after the lecture tonight, it'd be 25% off your initial visit. So instead of $100, it's $75. That will include your first visit, which is a 90-minute new patient exam. So we do an extensive history. We'll put you on the Nerve Express to measure your stress results, and then we'll do a bunch of muscle testing. And then that $75 also includes your second visit. And the second visit is where you'll receive a full written report of all your findings, and it'll have kind of what our findings are, and we'll explain it and go over it with you, along with like what our recommendations would be. And so there's no commitment, to follow up with us beyond the report, but I guess that's all I would say. You can kind of determine at that point whether or not this sounds like the right program for you or something that you would want to follow through with or not. So that's the offering for you guys. Nikki will be at the desk in a little bit while in muscle testing to handle that with you guys if you want to schedule or prepay to get the discount. Otherwise, if you want to just put the sheets on this chair, and I'll just kind of take you back in order, and we'll muscle test you. Need some water. Yeah, she's going to do it? Okay, yeah, just have her fill out a sheet. I got you first, so come on back, and then I'll come and grab your sheet. If you guys want to come back together, if you have somebody that you're here with and you want to come back as a group, you're welcome to do that too.